Beyonce is considered to be the greatest entertainer of our time. Notice I didn't say of all time, because I think a lot of people will argue and say it's Michael Jackson, and they'll be in my DMs. Though somebody did comment that Rihanna is the Michael Jackson of this generation, that I was surprised by that comment. But either way, we're talking about Beyonce here. We're not talking about Michael, may his soul rest in peace. We're not talking about Rihanna. We're talking about Beyonce. Is Beyonce a colonizer? She got a lot of backlash for her last album, The Gift, where they said she appropriated African content. But we're going to get into that in a bit. We're going to get into that because let's just look at Beyonce and how she's able to stay relevant, right? So there are different types. Beyonce has many different eras. Obviously, we know the Destiny's Child era. We know the Beyonce emerging solo superstar era. And then there was another era of Beyonce, just sort of like the Sasha Fierce era, right? Then there was a shift with Beyonce, right? There was a major shift. And what was that shift? It was Lemonade, right? Why was Lemonade a significant moment in Beyonce's career? Why was Lemonade the signifier that put her on the same pace as a Michael Jackson, even though people were claiming that she was a new Michael Jackson well before that? Because this new era was Beyonce, the person that attaches herself to movements. And if you haven't noticed, every album that Beyonce has released since 2016 is attached to a movement, very much around or centered on her blackness, which is a good thing, right? And I'm going to get to that. It's a good thing because prior to that, her image was not of blackness, right? It was just a general, universal superstar. And it was like she used that as a tool to gather as many fans as possible from around the world. Then she used her superstardom to bring awareness to Black issues, right? So one of the reasons, and I'm going to say this as the signifier of as why Beyonce has been able to stay relevant consistently, is that she attaches herself to movements. And she's not the only one that does this. She didn't invent this. Michael Jackson did it. We see other artists doing it. But the way that Beyonce does it, because it's not what you do, it's how you do it. The way that Beyonce does it is that she positions herself as the leader of that movement, because she's not just attaching herself to a movement, she's attaching herself to an emerging movement, something that is getting a lot of buzz on social media, that people are commenting on, people are talking about, etc. Right? She's attaching herself to that movement, and boom, she elevates it with her superstardom. It's like the two come together and it's this major explosion. So around that 2016 moment, we had a lot of Black Lives Matter sort of protests. We had a lot of awareness about Black Lives Matter, but it wasn't really elevated to the level that it was once Beyonce attached herself to that movement with Lemonade. And it wasn't just Black Lives Matter that she actually attached herself to, but more specifically, she attached herself to Black girl magic with Lemonade. And so she was able to connect with Black women and empower Black women and elevate Black women in a way that the world could glorify and adore Black women. And it became so relatable and so important on a universal level. So that was that era. And for me, that's when I sort of rekindled my fandom, or that's when I sort of rekindled my interest in Beyonce, because I'm going to be honest, I was a Beyonce fan probably all the way growing up until probably about 2009. And I guess I just wasn't inspired as much. But for me, as soon as she came out with Lemonade, I was like, wow, this is incredible. She's obviously an innovator. She made this visual album. And she did something so refreshing, so different. And she invented the visual albums, right? And so this, for me, especially as a Black woman, for me, it was just so magical. And that's what drew me to her. So that was 2016, Lemonade. Then what came after that? Everything is Love, in 2018. And there she was attaching herself to an emerging movement, which is like today, Black love as a movement is trending on social media so much. And it was emerging at the time. This is when we started rethinking and analyzing Black love. And today there's so many YouTubers that are profiting off of content and making a lot of content around Black love. And Beyonce took advantage of that emerging trend, Black love. And it was a very important thing for her to do to heal that wound, because in 2016, she sort of exposed her spouse, Jay-Z, for, cheating in the Lemonade album. And so Black love was the way to show the world, because he was getting a lot of backlash, in the world. So I think she just wanted to also repair his image a little bit, and have some sort of unity with him. And so she did that album, Everything is Love, Black love. And, again, another movement that she attached herself to. I would call this era, honestly, this era right now that Beyonce is in is probably her Black Lives Matter era, right? And so after that, she did that. Then she did The Gift, for the Lion King soundtrack. And here she now, in 2019/2020, when she released the visual album, this is now her attaching herself to another movement, which is her African ancestry, right? Afrobeats. Afrobeats was an emerging music genre from about 2016, emerging. And even around 2018, 2019, it was playing on mainstream radio. In the UK, it has been playing for a long time. And I do have a video on the history of Afrobeats that I'm creating, so look out for that. I have a video on that. But let's focus on Beyonce, attaching herself to this emerging movement. But the issue I think that a lot of people had with it is that because this was a genre, it wasn't sort of like the Black Girls Magic, which was like a general, movement that happened through social media. We can't really pinpoint who started it, but it sort of started based on it being a social, cultural phenomenon that we have all experienced in some way, shape, or form. So it wasn't like, okay, Beyonce is appropriating Black girl magic. It was like, no, Beyonce is elevating it and giving more awareness to it. Then when it came to Black love, that naturally, because it's such a general thing, it's not owned by anyone, right? But when it came to Afrobeats, there are Afrobeats with an S, not Afrobeat. But when it came to Afrobeats, there are specific artists that actually created it and created that movement, right? So this was actually not, it was owned by West Africans and specifically Nigerians. There was ownership there. And even though she did pull together the biggest names in Afrobeats, I think a lot of people just saw it as Beyonce is just attaching herself to this emerging movement and not really giving it the respect that it deserved. But in a way, like, I think people need to be easy on her for this, because as she did with Black love and she did with Black Girl Magic, she's bringing awareness to this entity, to this thing, and bringing more awareness to it and allowing people to adopt it. And without Beyonce releasing that album, The Gift, and the visual album, if she didn't release that, I'm going to be honest, Afrobeats would not have penetrated the way that it has now. That we're having Justin Bieber do songs with Wizkid, and we're having Ed Sheeran do songs with Fireboy. It wouldn't have penetrated in a mainstream US, which equals global way. Because I remember in 2019, I went to Hong Kong and I was asking my Asian friends, I was asking my Chinese friends, do you guys know Afrobeats? And they've never heard it. Fast forward to, and even here, even going to New York City in 2019 and asking my friends, my white friends, have you heard Afrobeats? And it's a no. So while it was playing on the radios, it wasn't mainstream. But what Justin Bieber, Ed Sheeran, and Beyonce did was give it awareness to non-Black people. And by non-Black people, I mean the rest of the globe, right? So talking to my Hong Kong friends now, they know this stuff. Talking to Well, talking to my, white American friends, they know it. But either way, this is an interesting thing that Beyonce has done. And I'm curious to know what movement she's going to attach herself to next for the next album. And if she's still in the Beyonce's sort of Black Lives Matter era. But either way, as far as I'm concerned, the things that she stands for, she's helping those causes, and she's bringing awareness to those causes. So she's doing more for the causes. She's doing more for it than she's taking away from it. And if it makes her more relevant along the way, why not? That is the business of show business. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts. Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, all the above. My name is Kenim, and see you next time. Peace.